After our parents divorced, my sister Lisa got on her knees and begged me not to leave her alone. She said I was the only one she could rely on. To help her continue her studies, I dropped out of school and worked 2 jobs to support her. Then one day, she came to me crying that a guy at school was giving her a hard time. Worried sick, I rushed to her school overnight to protect her. But she ended up defending him, saying, "My sister just cares too much about me." Later, she secretly dated him and ran away right before her college entrance exams. Unaware, I searched for her everywhere, only to be killed by that guy with a brick. In court, Lisa cried and signed a letter of forgiveness, saying, "Sis, I'm sorry. I just can't lose him." I opened my eyes again, and it was right back to when the guy first troubled her. I had been looking for her ever since the school called me about her disappearance. There was less than a month until the college entrance exams. I couldn't fathom she had run away with someone. I mean, does anyone in this world really wait less than a month? It rained non-stop in New York for a whole week, and every day I wandered through it. Until I found her near an abandoned building, carrying groceries. I shouted her name with all my might, and she glanced back at me like a startled rabbit and ran. I chased her into an alley, only to get struck on the head with a brick by David, the guy she ran away with. Pain shot through my skull, and my vision blurred. Blood gushed from my head, making it hard to see. I heard Lisa's panicked voice, "David, she's my sister." "So you want to call the cops on me?" David asked. "I can't stand her meddling. If she hadn't kicked up a fuss at school back then, I wouldn't have been so embarrassed. I thought it was over, decided not to bother with studies anymore. But now? She's still coming after us." That was the chaos I heard. On the ground, I couldn't even lift a finger, just struggled to keep my eyes open to see them clearly. Lisa's voice, weak and helpless, disgusted me for the first time. More and more blood flowed. They weren't going to save me, but how could I die here? It's so unfair. With every ounce of strength, I reached for my fallen phone. Lisa noticed and cried, "Sister, don't." She begged David like before, with innocent eyes flooded with tears. But then David covered my mouth and nose, and the air got thinner. Lisa tried to pull his hand away, pleading pitifully, "David, stop. She's my sister." "What?" David said. "She lives, I go to jail. Look at all the blood, you think she'll make it?" Lisa just let go, crouched on the ground, and sobbed. "Sister," she said, "why do you always push me? I have my own life too." Her shameless justification rang in my ears as I slowly grew silent in agony and suffocation, my soul drifting free. I watched them dump my body into a sewer. I was unwilling, so unwilling. How could my life end this way? She told me David was a thug harassing her and begged me to handle it. But she ended up with him, not saying a word to me. I thought she'd vanished from stress. Her last call asked me not to impose my dreams on her, that she was struggling. That made me feel guilty, wondering if I was putting too much pressure on her. After our parents' divorce, they ignored us. I left school in sophomore year to work and support her. She'd clung to my legs and pleaded, "Sister, please don't abandon me, okay?" Swearing to heaven, she promised, "Once I graduate, I'll work hard to support you finishing your studies." Once, I believed going to a good college was our shared dream. I worked tirelessly, paid for the best tutoring. Now she blames me, saying I forced it on her. My spirit wandered for ages, helpless as my body wasted away. Until the police solved the case and found my corpse. I had to see them face justice. But in court, as I saw Lisa's crocodile tears and her signing the pardon, I lost control. Rushing at her, I screamed, "How could you? Have you no conscience?" But she didn't hear me. Her eyes were fixed on David, mouthing the words, "I'll wait for you." I felt pitiful and absurd. I'd wasted years on a thankless wretch. My body turned transparent. I thought I was finally gone. But then I woke up again. At that moment Lisa first cried about David bothering her. Exhausted from working 2 jobs, I was always worn out. Between real sleep and dream world, the phone rang. I struggled to believe it, that awful feeling was back. Lisa's frail voice came through. "Sister, what do I do? There's a thug at school eyeing me, blocking my way every day." After that, I barely listened, just stared at the time on my phone. I'd traveled back 2 years, to when Lisa was a freshman. Last time, at dawn, I rushed to her school, worried she'd be disturbed. My place was pretty far out, rent was cheap. I had to take 3 buses and a subway to get there. When I argued with her teachers, Lisa interrupted. Red-eyed, she bowed and apologized. "Sorry, teachers. My sister just cares too much." Just like that, I seemed meddlesome. Yet she'd called me for over an hour crying about it. However, when I dragged my exhausted body to school to solve the problem for her, she got mad and pulled me away. "Sis, why didn't you discuss this with me before coming here? How am I supposed to handle this? What if David can't continue his education?" Her voice carried a tone of blame. I was a bit angry too and snapped back. "Didn't you say you were scared to go to class because of him every day?" She froze for a moment, then started crying her heart out. I've always pampered her since she was little, so I softened my tone. Eventually, she sent me away with just a few words. I still remember her telling me seriously at that time, "Sis, David isn't bothering me anymore. Let's just leave it at that." I was there for her, and since she said so, I listened to her and dropped the matter. I didn't bother with the issue anymore, and eventually, I nearly forgot this incident. Little did I know that I'd be resented by that stubborn David. Because the teacher called his parents, and he got a good scolding at home. Afterward, when I tried to find Lisa, she'd already decided to go back to school. But she was afraid of losing him, so she didn't dare to tell him directly and put all the blame on me. So the first chance David got to see me, he went all out. The past flashed through my mind, and now, hearing Lisa crying on the phone again, I said coldly, "Well, you can call the police." "Sis, what are you talking about? What if David ends up with a record?" The girl on the other side seemed a bit angry. "How is his record any of your business?" "No, that's not it. We're classmates after all," she explained nervously. "All right then. I'm tired, going to sleep now. We can talk tomorrow." I was too tired to deal with her and quickly ended the call. Just then, I got a message about a refund for an extra class for Lisa. Since she said she had no time to attend, I had to negotiate to get back 70%. I lost over $3,000 from just this. With my pay rate at $20 an hour, I'd have to work over 150 hours. Thinking about it now, it's really ironic. I was willing to be her stepping stone, and in the end, I was just a pebble in her shoe. The idea of being reborn was too bizarre to talk about with anyone. I sat in the city park for an entire day. Once, I thought Lisa was the closest person to me in this world. I felt it was so hard to rise above our family situation. When I decided to drop out of school, I didn't sleep at all that night. The image of that young child begging and hugging my legs came to mind. I ended up sacrificing myself. Thinking back now, it's indescribable. But it taught me one thing: the closest person and the most deserving of my love in this world is myself. If I can't love myself, how can I expect others to respect me? With Lisa, I considered rushing to school, slapping her, screaming at her, asking her why. But I gave it up because who would believe I'd been reborn? With a few thousand left set aside for her classes, I quickly quit my job. Then, I signed up for this year's college exams. On my 5th day of self-study at home, Lisa suddenly showed up back from school. She kicked the table next to her in a rage as soon as she came in. "Sis, why'd you tell Mom? You know her temper. How selfish are you not to think about me?" I understood why she was angry. Mom always wanted to please her since I covered all the expenses. She just had to show up and show a little favor and everything would be alright. But when Lisa started scolding her in front of the school leaders without understanding the whole situation, my mom's temper flared up. Regardless of the people around, she grabbed Lisa by the hair and shouted, "Oh great! It's not harassment, it's an affair, huh? This hasn't even started, and you're siding with him?" Lisa wasn't a match for our mom and got beat without any chance to retaliate. It was the teachers who ultimately separated them. And this turned into a big drama all over the school. My former workmate at Lisa's school supermarket told me. Yes, I used to work at the school supermarket for Lisa's convenience. But she once said seeing me there made her uneasy. To ensure she felt comfortable, I changed jobs. Now that I think about it, it wasn't the unease. She just didn't want a sister working in a supermarket embarrassing her. All the good I did for her, she thought it was her due. Whenever something wasn't up to her liking, she'd believe I owed her. That's why today she vented her anger at me instead of Mom. But I wouldn't let her anymore. I raised my hand and slapped her. Selfish? What self-centered thing did I do? What do I owe you? She was shocked at first, then filled with rage. You hit me? Who gave you the right? She bent and charged at me after saying this. I couldn't keep my balance and fell to the floor. Then she sat on me, choking me, while crying, "Who gave you the right? Who gave you the right?" As I lay there on the cold floor, my heart sank to rock bottom. This was the sister I bled and sweat for. Turns out she can be tough with me. Turns out she can be so brave. But she couldn't pull away the hand covering my mouth nor make a call to the police then. I kneed her away. Then grabbed a clothing rod nearby and started hitting like crazy. Get out. Get out. I hit her so much that she couldn't fight back. She huddled in a corner, holding her head, pleading, "Sis, stop. Stop. I'm sorry." I pointed the stick at her and said, "Hand over the key and get out. Step in here again, and I'll cut you with a knife." Each time I saw her, I'd remember her pathetic smile while handing over that apology letter. I can't do anything to her in this law-abiding society. But I can kick her out of my life. She seemed a bit scared, hesitating for a moment. I swung the stick at her again. Finally, she timidly handed over the keys. Get out. I have nothing else to say to her. But just as she reached the door, she suddenly turned around, fell to her knees, and grabbed my legs tightly, saying, "Sister, I was wrong. I was wrong. Sister, I'll change. I'll change everything. Please, don't ignore me, okay?" Honestly, after being touched by her, I felt disgusted. I swung a stick at her. Before it even reached her, she let go and stumbled back a few steps. Why should I care about you? Why would I care about you? Did I give birth to you? Your parents aren't dead yet. You won't go to them, you just want to exploit me, right? Oh wait, you look down on me while exploiting me. She looked at me with those pitiful eyes, just crying without saying a word. I couldn't stand her annoying look and continued, "Since you started middle school, I've supported you for over 4 years. That's my gift to you, you don't have to pay me back. We're done." She looked shocked and stared at me, scared. I gave a mocking smile. That smile seemed to trigger her. If you didn't want to care for me, you shouldn't have started. Are you regretting it now? Why did you pretend to be so noble back then? Yeah. I do regret it. It's not my responsibility to care for you. Go find your parents. If you don't leave, just try me. I moved as if I was going to hit her with the clothes rod. She wiped her tears, looked at me with hatred, and said, "Fine. Don't regret it. Don't come asking me for help later." With that, she ran off, slamming the door hard. Honestly, after that fight with Lisa, I felt relieved. I've been carrying this burden for so many years, almost never planning my own life. Our parents are selfish people. When we asked Dad for living expenses, he'd tell us to go to Mom. When we went to Mom, she'd say, "Why don't you ask Dad?" When they first got divorced, I was still in school. Lisa often told me she didn't have enough money. Couldn't get anything from them. So I gave her my allowance. I often ate only one meal a day. Finally, I had no choice but to drop out and work. But now Lisa tells me, why should I care for her? Why should I hit her? Yeah. Why? She's not my child. The first month I didn't give her living expenses, she messaged me, are you not even going to give me money now? The tone was so entitled. I didn't bother replying, just blocked her number. But without me, she managed. She started going to our parents for money, confronting them. At first, they found it novel and were willing to give. After a few months, both called me to scold me, you're not even looking after your sister anymore? See. The selfish genes run in our family. They think it's my duty to care for their kids. Everyone just assumes my help is a given. I have only one thing to say, did I have the kid? What are you two for? Now they both insist, we gave birth to you, is that wrong? Of course, it's wrong. Who'd want to be related to you? Who are you trying to morally guilt here? Let me remind you, Lisa was only 13 when I started supporting her. Abandoning a 13-year-old is child neglect. I still have recorded calls and texts from then. We'll settle it in court if needed. I kept those records to remind myself, I can only rely on me. Thinking about those helpless days, I despise everyone in this family. I've blocked several of their numbers. From now, I'm living for myself, and no one will disturb me. You can only keep your student status for a year, but I've been out of school for years. So, there's no other way but to take the GED. Counting my cash, I remember reading some Rebirth novels. The protagonist always has a big time jump to succeed. But that's not me, I've only got a couple of years. Which means I don't know much. No degree, no savings, so being reborn doesn't help much. Luckily, the store manager where I worked once told me about stocks that tripled. Without hesitation, I invested everything, except basic living costs, into the stock market. In just 3 months, my $4,000-5,000 turned into about $20,000. I sold some to cover classes and expenses. The rest I'll cash out when the time's right. I got a second chance, and I've learned. I suffered before partly because of my own choices. I was too indulgent with others, never protected my interests, sacrificing myself needlessly. How could I expect anyone to care for me? What comes easy isn't valued. Lisa often argued with our parents. Legally pressured, they gave her basic support. But both said they'd stop once she's 18. So Lisa dropped out in her sophomore year. She blamed it all on me, even got on the local news. In the video, she cried stubbornly, "It's okay, if my sister doesn't care for me, I'll rely on myself." But what she didn't expect was the reporter asking, "Why blame your sister, not your parents? Your sister's only a few years older." That question left her speechless. She babbled on camera, "No, my sister promised to take care of me, but suddenly kicked me out." Why did she suddenly kick you out? We had a small fight. She trailed off, ending the awkward interview. See? Nobody thinks a sister just a few years older should bear this burden. And I hadn't even explained much. There are tons of rumors and supposed witnesses popping up online again. Some reporters interviewed places where I used to work. They even talked to the organization where I paid for Lisa's tutoring. Someone did the math and figured out I work at least 14 hours a day. My hourly wage is about 15 to 21 per hour. Meanwhile, Lisa's tutoring fees are at least $180 an hour. And yet, she skipped several classes. Suddenly, Lisa was thrust into the spotlight. Even the bubble tea shop where she works part-time is getting attention. None of this concerns me anymore. What really stings is that, despite sweating it out for years to support her, she only has endless resentment for me. When I stopped supporting her, her first move was to steer public opinion against me. But this time, she couldn't handle the backlash. I heard she quit her part-time job and took off to another city with some guy named David. She sent me a text before leaving, "Betty, I'm waiting for the day you get what you deserve." I laughed out of frustration when I saw it. Then I quickly blocked her new number. I hope to never have any ties again. Reporters reached out to me several times, asking for an interview. I just softly replied, "I've thought about living my own life, let them do what they want." Soon, my self-study results came out after preparing for half a year. I got into my chosen school and program, as expected. To be honest, going back to school after being out in the world is really tough. You have to start learning bit by bit. Lisa completely gave up the opportunity one sacrificed for her. I've tasted the bitterness of having no degree while working, so even a modest degree means a lot to me. Plus, I've already planned to go to grad school. Leaving New York felt like my life was just beginning. My school is by the sea. I've always wanted to see the ocean but put it off because of money and being worried about leaving Lisa alone. Now I finally see it. The waves crash on the shore, with the sea breeze in my hair, and I feel like my life should have vast horizons. Not being morally blackmailed or naively devoting myself entirely. College is a great place. At 20, I finally got to live my youth. The campus is full of vibrant red Royal Poinciana trees, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, marking the beginning of my life's second chapter. I'm not lonely here. Plenty of my classmates got into college by self-study, just like me. Everyone agrees it's never too late to change. The oldest student in our class is nearly 40 and is a very cheerful woman. She said her daughter is in high school now, and she's less busy, so she wants to better herself too. Talking with them is enlightening. Their life experiences and resilience are things I hadn't encountered before. My past life was all about getting through each day and figuring out how to trade my cheap time and labor for more money. But now, I'm learning how to make myself more valuable. My parents still contact me frequently, mainly about money. I used to hate dealing with it, always trying to pay them off. But it never really solved the issues between us. They see having kids as a business, naturally wanting to earn as much as possible. Who cares about my well-being, right? Now I only have this to say, you're still able and not yet in need of my support. Besides, you didn't really raise me back then. Anyway, I'm studying now, will you cover my tuition? They got mad right away, you're an adult already, and you expect us to provide for you? Where's your conscience? What do you think? You two aren't great people, what kind of child did you expect to have? These arguments are exhausting, but they serve a purpose. At least I've kept my study money intact. The year I applied to graduate school, my mom called me crying, "Your sister is pregnant, what should we do?" You're her mother, why ask me? They never cared when we were kids, so how can they expect adults to suddenly have everything figured out? I've got limited capabilities myself, and now, I just want to nurture myself all over again. Study well, learn real skills, and explore my surroundings during breaks. Life doesn't have to be that hard. With good prep and a bit of a knack for learning, I aced my grad school entrance exams. I got into the graduate school I wanted. The day I received my acceptance letter, it felt like a dream. I had fallen to rock bottom, never expecting to see a day like this. I thought I'd waste away my life in a factory without sunlight. But fate flipped completely. It turns out, the most valuable thing in life is me. When I saw Lisa again, it was at my university. She was working in the cafeteria. Our eyes met as I swiped my meal card. Such an ironic scene. I once worked at the supermarket in her school, where she avoided me. Now, here we are, meeting again in a strange city. We silently agreed not to exchange pleasantries or greetings. After moving up to the next level, I participated in some competitions to prep for grad school. I had no time to care what she was up to. To me, she's like a stranger but with more dislike. I'm not that morally high to forgive what she did to me back then. Yet, she came to me herself. She wore a faded blue pleated skirt, one I bought for her in high school. Her hair was neater, but still looked rough and dry. Love is like nurturing a flower. But it seems her chosen love was like an herbicide. She came to me, but her first words were, "Are you happy now, seeing me like this?" Happy about what? Why would anyone care about someone like you? Someone like me? What kind of person am I? Her face flushed with anger as she talked. What kind of person are you? What does it have to do with me? And don't you already know what kind of person you are? I didn't bother with her anymore and turned to leave. Seeing her feels like a waste of my time every time. But she wouldn't let go, grabbed my arm, and started crying. So, what? Now, you're a proud grad student and can't even look at your cafeteria worker sister anymore? It's ridiculous. Was it me who asked you to be the lunch lady? Now you remember I'm your sister. When you were hitting me, didn't you curse me for meddling in your business? I pushed her away and turned to leave. If anything, there's one thing I deeply regret in life. It's sacrificing myself stupidly back then, only for her to feel entitled all these years. She always thinks it's my fault whenever she screws up. She believes I should take care of her forever. That I'm supposed to provide for her obediently. But why should I? I thought the matter would blow over soon. But just a few days after we split, rumors about me started swirling around school, just like before. She used the same old tricks, trying to defeat me with gossip. People would point at me and say, "She looks great but can't even take care of her own sister." Some people planned for grad school while their younger sister didn't even finish high school. There were countless comments like that. Before I could even react, Lisa jumped off a building at school. Firefighters talked her down. She said life was meaningless, that no one cared about her. Some busybody dragged me into it. The rumors spiraled out of control, claiming I mistreated her, causing her to end up like this. With the rapid spread of the internet these years, my information was everywhere instantly online. Headlines on major portals screamed, "Big sister about to start grad school, watches indifferently as little sister jumps." The cafeteria building was just 3 stories high, with an inflatable cushion below. She got checked out at the hospital and was back to work soon after. The news blew up. I had just finished my grad school interview. My advisor reached out, urging me to handle it properly. Meanwhile, Lisa capitalized on the buzz to become an influencer. She dragged our parents into her live stream too. On camera, she cried how I only cared about myself and hadn't contacted them in years. Some viewers thought it was fishy and asked, "Don't you have parents? Why must it be your sister's job to take care of you? Isn't she just a student too?" My mom eagerly chimed in, coughing for effect, "I'm just not in good health, thank God for my daughter." I kept silent about it all, letting them make a scene. I racked my brain on how to clear my name. After all, we live in a society governed by laws. But since they were hell-bent on acting crazy, let karma bite them. Lisa's fame grew. But before I could strike back, our dear parents had a falling out with her. All over money issues. Lisa was head over heels in love. Most of her earnings went to some thug named David. In just a few months, the guy drove a luxury car. These videos and photos led to her losing a lot of followers. The comments were empathetic, "Feel bad for the sister struggling while the brother-in-law drives a fancy car." After the parents had their spat with her, their behavior was anything but honorable. They went live exposing all her secrets. What did she study? You all know. Her sister enrolled her in classes, but she skipped how many times? Soon enough her sister gave up. We supported her, but she dropped out and decided to make money online. She agreed to it first, now she regrets it. She wanted to be with that thug as early as high school, we couldn't stop her. She even got pregnant, they said while gesturing. There was no affection in this family, united by greed, and naturally scattered by it. No one benefited from their infighting. Lisa was berated so much she deleted her account. As for our parents, they shamelessly got back together, inviting us home through their streams. Some people are just born shameless, without any boundaries. Now they need kids because kids mean views, and views mean money. I no longer paid them any mind. But I did hand the media some evidence from back then. I'll let sleeping dogs lie unless they try to bait me for clout again. Once the dust settled, I resumed grad school. In my second year, I studied abroad. The world's vast, and I've got a long life ahead. I refuse to be trapped by petty dramas. The internet attention is fleeting. Soon enough, the family vanished from the web. In a foreign land, I soaked up the local culture. Every winter, the aurora would light up the skies. The ground was covered in a white blanket, colorful lights spanning the horizon. The world seemed surreal and beautiful. How insignificant humans are. Life is so short. Bundled up in a thick down coat, I gazed at the sky. Grateful beyond words for this second chance. I even met a boyfriend there. He was an international student too, like me. On foreign soil, two people with shared nationality and culture gravitated toward each other. We had common topics, shared hobbies, my first real love, I think. Once, I thought I'd never fall for anyone again. Turns out, I was just stuck in the same old place and forgot to step out. Back home, we pursued our studies. Then graduated, eased into careers, and settled in a city. This seemingly ordinary but blissful life took me 2 lifetimes to find. I didn't inform any so-called family about my wedding. This time, I won't let anyone disrupt my peace. I refuse to shoulder anyone else's life. No more contact with them, any future caretaking will be strictly by law. I won't blindly follow orders like before. A few years into my career, my husband and I decided to start our own company using the savings we'd built up. We're not super wealthy, but we've got everything we need. We have more free time now, so we've been putting some energy into charity work. I saw Lisa again when my husband and I went to the countryside to volunteer as teachers. It's the same place where we grew up, still pretty poor. A lot of kids drop out of school there. Back then, I was determined to study hard and escape from that poor and backward place. But when faced with the sister I grew up with, I let it go. She seemed to take it for granted. Eventually, she went back to school. Even years after graduation, I felt averse to returning there. Childhood was tough. My parents often fought or went out gambling. Lisa and I were often hungry. Then they divorced, and we became basically parentless. Thinking about that place always brought back those uncomfortable memories, lacking food, clothing. That's why I was so eager for Lisa to study hard and get out. But now, I'm not running anymore. I think if our hometown isn't good, our generation should try to change it. It's in this context that I met Lisa again. She has a kid now, about 11 or 12 years old. She looked older, almost like we weren't from the same generation. She was begging a man to let her kid go to school. I took a closer look and realized it was David, the troublemaker from school, now with a big belly and greasy all over. Life can really change how people look. She had lived her reckless youth and now was facing the harsh reality. He slapped her so hard that her nose started to bleed, saying, "You couldn't even give me a son, and you have so many demands." Lisa looked blankly at the mocking eyes around her. Our eyes suddenly met. She didn't recognize me at first, just smiled awkwardly and said, "Teacher, my kid will definitely attend school. Sorry to embarrass you." I didn't respond, just watched her quietly. This was the love she chose. I have no idea how it ended, but suddenly Lisa recognized me. Her smile froze in embarrassment. She pursed her lips as if she wanted to cry but held back a smile, hobbling away with her kid in tow. I didn't stay at the school for long. My husband and I just donated money, hired a few teachers, and helped with some basic facilities. One night, I had a dream. It was about what happened after my death. David was jailed for involuntary manslaughter. Even with Lisa's letter of forgiveness, he was sentenced to nearly 20 years. Shockingly, Lisa waited for him. During that time, she often visited and encouraged him. David got some reduced sentences for good behavior. When they reunited in middle age, they fell for each other all over again. In the dream, Lisa didn't drop out because David was in jail. She kept studying and became a company manager with a car and a house. They were sweet at first, but it didn't last a year. David, who had no real education, often swore. The youthful charm Lisa saw faded. They started arguing a lot. David was always suspicious and began abusing her, spent her hard-earned money on gambling. Lisa would try to stop him, but he beat her so badly she became paralyzed. David then continued enjoying life off her money while Lisa lived a hellish existence. She started calling out my name in her empty room, crying, "Sister, I was wrong." Later, I dreamt it was New Year's Eve. David was drunk, and Lisa crawled to the kitchen, turned on the gas, and ended her life in flames with her so-called love. I thought it was just a dream until a few days later someone mentioned that one day Lisa got pushed by David and hit her head. She woke up like a different person, kept asking for me, wanting to see me. I refused. Whatever she realized or repented for wasn't my concern. Everyone is responsible for their own life. We shouldn't interfere in others' fates. I last heard that she poisoned David and his family. She wanted to see me before her execution. I still said no. From the moment I got a new lease on life, I lost a sister, and she lost the chance to call me her sister.